Well, patience isn't Nathan's only superpower. He seems to have figured out how to get Ruth chapter 1 into the Gospel of Matthew. I don't know if you noticed that. That's actually quite amazing. I'm going to ask him how he did that. Well, we are in the opening weeks of our worship series, Spirit Life. We're exploring how our financial generosity is shaped by living the fruits of the Spirit. Live by the Spirit, Paul says to his church in Galatia. And Paul continues, the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, generosity, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. There is no law against such things, Paul says. And the amazing thing is that all of these fruit of the Spirit, they come from living Spirit life. They both help us live Spirit life, but they also help us grow more of the fruits of the Spirit. If you have more love in your life, you're bound to have more peace. If you have more gentleness in your life, you're bound to have more kindness. The same is true for generosity. So as we move through the stewardship appeal this year, we're going to dive deeper into several of these fruits of the Spirit to guide us into Spirit life with more generosity. And I think it's important to understand why the Apostle Paul calls all these fruits of the Spirit, because they are to be grown. They just don't magically show up one day. Living Spirit life and growing in the fruits of the Spirit is a journey. It's a journey for us all. And for me, one of the more obvious ones is the spiritual fruit of patience. Back when I was around graduating college and thinking about my future as a young adult, I thought that, you know what, if I'm given the opportunity to be a dad later on in my life, I really wanted to be the best dad I could possibly be. I wanted to be the best dad. And so I actually went into counseling to kind of see where some things were in my life that needed a little mending, some things that needed a little work on. And then I met my wife, we got married. And before we had kids, we decided that, it's really, really important for us to be healthy together in relationships so that if we do have kids, they're going to come into our family, kind of crash into our family. And we want to make sure that we could be as healthy as we possibly can be as you welcome these kiddos into our lives. And all of my friends, we all became dads, first-time dads around the same time. And so we would spend lots of time in conversation with one another, caring for one another, listening to one another. And now we're all empty nesters. And now we're in the same journey and support with one another as well. So there I was, a relatively new dad on a Saturday afternoon with the task of replacing a faucet in the bathroom, the vanity in the bathroom. And why did I need to replace this faucet? Well, I did say that my wife and I have been working on a relationship. So I thought the idea of replacing a perfectly good faucet with another perfectly good faucet was a great idea. It was amazing. Why not? Why not do that? Why not take the time to do that? I was happy to do it. Chipper even, let's say. However, I'm lying on my back, and my body type is not built to squeeze into these little bathroom vanities, and my arms are not long enough to reach all the way up to the very top to unscrew these screws. I don't know why they do that. They give you the special tools and all that kind of stuff, and I'm in there just kind of reaching as far as I can to get these things unscrewed, and in walks my 3-year-old son, Jonah. He walks in with a screwdriver or a wrench, and he squeezes in with me under the vanity. Yeah, one of the cutest things of all time. Unless you're the one squeezed in under a vanity, replacing a faucet that you didn't want to replace. So you want to know what happened next? You can probably guess. I wasn't the most patient dad at that moment. Spirit life, not so much. Why not? Why? Well, because the most important thing was to get the job done, right? To get the task done, to replace this faucet so I could go on with my life. And Jonah, feeling that I wasn't so patient, got up and walked out of the bathroom. And that moment I remembered, no, wait a second, Paul, you want to be the best dad that you can be. And I remember at that very moment also going, what does that mean for me to be the best dad I can be? What does that look like? What's a word that helps shape that for me? And the word that came to my mind was, I want to be a generous dad. I want to be a generous dad. Generous with my affection, generous with my attention, generous with my patience, and generous with my time. And all of that pointed to the spiritual fruit of patience. To be generous with my affection and my attention, my presence and my time, all pointed to patience. Generosity came from a place of patience. So I called Jonah back in, and we spent the whole afternoon, yes, the whole afternoon, replacing the faucet. Well, why not, right? Because that's where the good stuff is. That's where spirit life is. I don't think I would remember that story if we hadn't taken the time to be generous with one another. It would just been another afternoon changing a faucet. But there's this spiritual fruit of patience led to generosity. And over the years, we've done lots and lots of projects together, wasted lots and lots of afternoons together, putting things together. And that generosity now has been paid forward. So now, as my 21-year-old son comes home and he sees dad struggling to put something together, he waits quite patiently. And then he walks over and says, "Hey, Dad, I got this." And he's going to be a mechanical engineer. So yes, go ahead. I can watch. Really, really fun. Now, generosity born out of patience is not new, but it can often be overlooked. And it's often overlooked in the story of Ruth. The story of Ruth is included in our Hebrew scriptures we call the Old Testament. And the story of Ruth is a story about a husband and wife. The wife's name is Naomi. And this husband and wife have 2 boys. And there's a famine where they live in Judah. There's a famine, and Naomi and her husband and her 2 sons end up going over to a different country called Moab. They become immigrants. They become refugees, looking for a better life, looking to provide for their family. And over in Moab, Naomi's husband dies. And then her 2 sons marry Moabite women. And then tragedy strikes again, and Naomi's 2 boys die. And so there's Naomi left with her 2 daughters-in-law, 2 Moabite women. And widows at this time, it was hard. They could not find ways to provide for themselves. And so Naomi thought, okay, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to go back to Judah. I'm going to go back to my home and hope that they will take me in. Hope there's some family over there that will take me in. My daughters-in-law, Naomi says, you go back to your family. Go back to your families. They will take care of you. And one of them does. But one of them doesn't. One of them, named Ruth, stays. And she makes this promise to Naomi, one of the most famous promises in all of Scripture. But Ruth said, "Do not press me to leave you or to turn back from following you. Where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die. There I will be buried. May the Lord do thus and so to me, and more as well, if even death parts me from you." What a promise. What a promise. And we might just stop right there, and a lot of people do in Ruth. They stop with that promise. But this is not just a story of promises made, but it's a story of promises fulfilled. And these promises fulfilled are linked to generosity, born out of lots of things. But one of them is patience. The next thing that happens in this story goes like this. So the 2 of them went on until they came to Bethlehem. It's weird, kind of think like they're on kind of a Sunday stroll. They just kind of went on. The 2 of them went, makes it sound like that. But no, it was a 7 to 10 day hike over difficult terrain, exposed to weather, wild animals, and who knows what else was lurking around. Ruth made a promise, but her patience kept her committed to that promise. I'm not sure how long my patience would last. Around 3, maybe 4 days? I don't know. Because going home to a familiar landscape, familiar people, going home to a sure thing would have sounded really, really good. But she didn't throw in the towel. Ruth was patient. They finally get back to Naomi's family, and they struggle. They have a hard time providing for themselves. And Ruth asks Naomi if she can help. Can I help go get some food for us? And Naomi says yes. And Ruth goes out into a field that had just been harvested and waits for permission to go get the food that's left over, kind of harvest some food that's left over in the field. And this is what the manager says about Ruth. So she came, Ruth, and she's been on her feet from early this morning until now without resting even a moment. Ruth is patiently waiting for permission from the landowner, a guy named Boaz. Remember last week we talked about a guy named Mordecai? We have this Boaz character now. And Boaz does notice her, and her patience is rewarded with generosity. He gives her a job, he gives her protection, and ultimately he gives her and Naomi a future by bringing them both into his family. Boaz and Ruth marry, and they become the proud great-grandparents of King David. Now, there are many, many things going on in Ruth. Too many for us to kind of tackle for us today. But let's not miss the spiritual fruit of patience that brings forth generosity in all these characters. A generosity that changes the course of history for an entire people as King David becomes a great champion and king. The spiritual fruit of patience is that great giver. Patience gives each of us time to reflect, time to get things sorted out, time to be ourselves. Patience gives us the time to do all of this. And so as you live into the season of our stewardship appeal, I urge all of us to live the spiritual fruit of patience. Financial generosity is not a topic we love to linger on. This is going to be a hike for some of us. It can leave us out in the open, exposed even. And after a few weeks, you may want to throw in the towel and just go home. You also may feel like Ruth, staying in the field all day long, wondering when all the stewardship stuff will end. I get it. But as we move together and as you consider your generosity, be patient with yourself. Be patient with one another. Take time. Take this seriously. Take time to reflect, to get things sorted out, to be yourself, to understand your own uniqueness and your gifts, and all of that is needed for the gospel of Jesus Christ. Living the spirit life of patience will lead you to be generous with your affection to this community and the gospel mission that Prince of Peace has committed itself to. Living the spirit life of patience will lead you to be generous with your time, your presence, your attention, and your financial resources. And the amazing thing is, if you've been around here for a while, you know how living the spirit life of patience has led to unbelievable generosity. Your generosity makes stories like this possible.
My name is Kelly Kaufman, and I have been a member of Prince of Peace for about 6 years. You know, growing up is probably best described as a casual observer. And it really wasn't until I met my wife about 31 years ago that she was the one that started to really open my eyes to God. So my wife and I, we were members of a Catholic church, and that was in Bloomington. We wanted something a little bit closer to home. The other thing that really drew me in, besides the music and the sanctuary and the way it was dressed up, the family portion of that Christmas service. But the bigger part was there was a sign language interpreter over here. In the next couple of years, I brought my parents here. because both my parents are deaf. And that was really the start of it. When we started coming here consistently, it was about my tank being empty and needing to be filled every week, because I would listen to the message and I would carry that message throughout the week. But it's no longer about that. It's more about, I've got this tool chest and it's got a bunch of tools in it, and I'm just keeping them shiny and I'm adding more to it. I have a background in audio engineering, right? I play a little bit of music too. So, but when you come here, you have, like I said, it's that feeling of somebody just kind of tapping you on the shoulder and saying, go do this. That's what happened when I started going to Pop Kids. I've been playing Pop Kids now for the last 5-6 years, and it's honestly one of the best joys of my life. I love doing it. It's every Wednesday throughout the school year. I mean, the kids are just wonderful. I just love it. Prince of Peace has been good to me and my family, and I've definitely grown since I've come here. If other people were on the fence about giving or serving, I would say, what is your heart telling you? What is God telling you to do? And that's a hard thing to tune into at first. But when you do, and that's what happened to me. It's important for Prince of Peace to continue its mission because of the giant footprint that it has in the community. Mission outpost, dental clinic, child care services, family ministry, all of those things. So Worship Arts Camp is a perfect example of that. My daughter learned how to play a multitude of different instruments, percussive. She learned how to play ukulele. None of that would be possible without the contributions of the congregation. I just look at it as giving, to help, because Prince of Peace does a fantastic job in the community that they serve, right? I mean, they help so many people. Why would you not want to be a part of that?
Why would you not want to be a part of that? Well, you are a part of that. You are helping to create story after story after story, just like Kelly's. You all probably have a similar story. And it's based on your generosity. Your generosity through the power of the Holy Spirit is we're able to reach out to all kinds of people. That's how it works. It's not magic. It doesn't just magically happen. There's a group of us get together and we believe in the gospel of Jesus Christ, and then we support it through our financial resources. So thank you for your generosity on behalf of Kelly and on behalf of so many other people who have had their lives changed through the power of the Holy Spirit. I told you I was going to let you know what was going on here and invite you into this stewardship process. That's what's going on here. That's what's going on. And for week after week after week here, we're going to be telling you what's going on and inviting you into this process. And maybe you have been a long-time giver and you know the joy of giving. Or maybe you're just still yet ready to give and you're like, I'm not sure yet. What an amazing thing that we get to do together is we get to help stories like Kelly's grow. So this morning we were able to hand out our first movement into stewardship. There would be 3 different movements. The first is to sustain our ministry. We passed the budget in June. We want to make sure that we're going to meet that budget to sustain our ministry. We invite you into generosity to do this. So take this home, put it someplace in your house where you can read through it, and then you can pray through it, and there'll be one the week next and the one the week after, and then we're going to have an opportunity to respond. The invitation is for you.